If you are born in Canada, it would be called a CBC bond, which is a Canadian birth certificate. Despite my request for the return of the CIC bond payments, none of them were ever returned to me. However, I have evidence that the CIC bond is valid, as I received a letter from the Receiver General from Canada confirming an electronic account. This meant that the bond payment worked. Funny thing, shortly after this, Scott Brison, the Receiver General of Canada, on April 22, 2006, entered a race for leadership of the Liberal Party, and he was the first Canadian open gay member of the cabinet. However, Andrew Burry had an aggressive agenda for me, and the bankers proceeded to foreclose on my home despite the CIC bond payment. I appeared before Justice Silverman on August 2005 with my 3 private witnesses. The game began when we were shuffled from one courtroom to another. Andrew Burry had stacks of foreclosure files, and he worked for more than one bank. I always wondered if this was not a conflict of interest. During the day, we watched Justice Silverman consciously toss people out of their homes with shuffled paperwork. Some people openly cried as they left the courtroom, not understanding why this was happening to them. I was amazed to see some wonderful, innocent, natural, free people appear before the bench without lawyers. But because the judge is hired by bankers, they are subjects and slaves of a system that must rule against all reasonable evidence presented by the people. I ran after one man who had his home foreclosed on because he missed one CIBC mortgage payment. He came from the Ukraine and told me he was going back to his home country, for at least there his government was honest with him. He's never seen anything so corrupt as this banking system, and he said that Canada took 3 years of his life. When it was my turn, I approached the bench alone, and the courtroom was virtually empty, except for my witnesses, some CCRA agents, and the bankers. Andrew Burry began to slander my name by calling me crazy because I had billed his client for millions of dollars for copyright trademark name infringements, and that he had to report his claim to his insurance company. He also said that I had billed CCRA for billions of dollars for copyright trademark name infringements. I was warned about this emotional bashing because it's a trick that they use to get you mad. This allows them to deem you as insane, particularly when you respond with emotional yelling and screaming, because this allows them to haul in the stretcher, pump the drugs into you, and then send you into a mental institution for close observation. There, at this mental institution, they'll drug you up for 6 months and then release you into the streets. Confused? You can't remember your name. You don't remember your family, you don't know where your home is, and you end up homeless on the street, pushing a buggy to beg for a cup of coffee. When the judge looked at me, he said, "Well, Miss Gravenhorst, I must ask you this question. Are you okay?" And because I was trained, I replied without emotion and said, "I'm fine," and proceeded with my evidence. I presented my affidavit number 2 and asked the judge, "Why am I here? I paid all my bills in good faith pursuant to the Bills of Exchange Act." That's when he said, "This doesn't look like a check." So I explained to him how I came upon its value. Then the judge turned to Burry and said, "Well, why is she here?" Andrew Burry said, "She didn't pay her property taxes, but she's completely up to date with her mortgage payments." So then I referred back to the affidavit. We discussed the home insurance company, Citadel, which was in debt to me for millions of dollars and had not paid me because I had revoked the original home insurance contract. Justice Silverman said, "Miss Gravenhorst, get a lawyer." It was 4 p.m., and regardless of all my evidence, Justice Silverman issued an order nisi which gives the vendor a 6-month window of opportunity to pay up again, like I did, or be subjected to an order for conduct of sale. Throughout all the paperwork issued by Andrew Burry, I responded with affidavits. There are 9 entered affidavits that claim common law jurisdiction on file at the Vancouver Court Registry. I use common law jurisdiction because I believe it has a Christed energy, as Jesus expressed his first anger in public in his temple to the money changers when they came in to charge usury interest rates on people. Common law jurisdiction lifts the veil of deceit and lets the judge know that you are a free man, free woman on land, and that he is a captain of ship of commerce governed by Admiralty maritime jurisdiction. In the meantime, I held my workshops out of my home, and 2 CCRA agents came to my workshop under fictitious names, Mark Wilcox and Lauren Mania. Someone informed me that they were not from CCRA, but perhaps from CSIS, because CCRA doesn't have the espionage budget to hire professionals. These 2 agents obtained information about CCRA's debt to me and did not complete the workshop, and only Lauren paid. The tip-off about these 2 was that after a check on their names and their personal information, we drew complete blanks. After about a week later, I received a visit from a suspicious courier who worked out of a van down the street with an accomplice. My neighbors saw this and reported everything to me because I educated them on what I was doing. My neighbors were my biggest supporters. I urge you to get to know your neighbors. Have a cup of coffee with them. Find out who they are, because they can be a big help to you in times of need. As my neighbors knew the truth, and over the past 13 years, we developed a strong friendship. Every time I had a party, they were invited, and every time they had a party, I was invited. We were the neighborhood block watch in the truest sense, supporting one another through good times and bad times. I urge you to get to know your neighbors. 6 months flew by as Andrew Burry continued with his papers to check me out of my home. I decided to ask for the return of the CIC bond on 3 occasions via Justice Silverman by fax because of a private sale between myself and a real estate investor. Neither the bank or the justice system responded, but instead I received a visit, a surprise visit by the way, from a company by the name of Prudential. They work very, very closely with the North Shore Credit Union. Friends encouraged me to sell immediately, so I hired my real estate agent, Michael Shellhouse from Remax. Michael knew what I was doing as I showed him all my court documents, and I have a witness visiting from Ottawa to confirm all of this. Because my multi-million-dollar home was in a very desirable location, he sold my home in one open house day. It was on a Saturday. Michael also phoned the North Shore Credit Union to inform them of this sale. He presented 3 written offers and the phone would not stop ringing. I agreed to a serious offer that came with a $40,000 deposit. Despite a fax notice of the sale to his office, Andrew Burry was intent on changing the locks to the house and issued another court hearing. I had an agent appear on my behalf twice to get a trial date because I wanted to prove that the bonds were valid pursuant to the Bills of Exchange Act. The 2 judges who handled my files were Master Bolton and Master Barber. They would not grant a trial to my agent, so I showed up on the last court date with over 10 witnesses and Michael to prove that the house was sold before Master Bolton. In front of these witnesses in a chamber session, I stated my common law jurisdiction claims as agent for the capitalized name. Then Andrew Burry went again into slander about my name, calling me crazy, asking Judge Bolton for conduct of sale order. When he was finished, I introduced my affidavit 12, and the judge asked me if Andrew Burry had seen it. I said, no, I didn't hire him. He was supposed to act for the bank. Why would I need to disclose this information to him? I'm here to inform the judge, you, that the house is sold with a $40,000 deposit in trust with Remax. So I began to read the paragraphs from my affidavit, and all of a sudden the phone began to ring in the courtroom. Not once, but twice. The judge stood up and called in for the sheriff backup to imprison me. 5 fully armed sheriffs surrounded me. I looked into their eyes and calmly said, "You do not have permission to touch me."